Greetings all. Today is December 26, 2023, and today I am reading from my preteen book, Invasions of the Globots, written by Patricia Hopkins. Chapter 1. Zap and CJ. Guess what, Dad? CJ said. What? Asked his father. I have a really cool homework assignment this weekend. My teacher told us to watch our favorite movie and then write a 2-page report about it. I think I'm going to write about that zombie movie we saw last night, he explained matter-of-factly. Zombies, huh? Why not write about something more, realistic? Zombies are realistic, and they're awesome to watch. CJ held out his arms, lowered his head to one side, and rolled his eyes back, pretending to be his favorite zombie character. Zap, CJ's older brother by 2.5 years, tore a piece from his cold pancake and flung the rubbery substance across the table. He laughed when it clung to CJ's curly hair. Dad, Zap is bothering me again. CJ picked the pancake bit free and threw it back at his brother. Don't play with your food, boys. Your mother spent all morning making those pancakes, so the least you can do is pretend to enjoy them, whispered the boy's father. CJ stuck his tongue out at Zap. He then hungrily gobbled up the remainder of his breakfast. Yuck. I don't know why Mom always makes us pancakes every Saturday. She knows we like waffles better, Zap whispered back. He balled up the remainder of the pancake in his hand and watched it unfurl, maintaining its original shape. I heard you, young man. You're having pancakes because making waffles takes too much time. Her attention was drawn to the television screen. Would you look at those poor people? Their child has been missing for a decade. She stood with her arms crossed, shaking her head from side to side. The family all turned their focus to the news anchorman who stated, over the past 10 years, there have been several cases of children reported missing from the city's King William neighborhood. Although foul play has not been ruled out, the children seem to be disappearing without a trace. So far, none of the children have been returned. And now for an update, we go to Carolina Santaloco. She is on location with one of the boys' missing parents. Thanks, Fred, Carolina reported. We're here with Hector Delgado's mother and father. Their son mysteriously disappeared from the King Williams district a decade ago while the family was having a family reunion. During their investigation, the San Antonio police indicated that Hector was the first of several children who have disappeared from the area. Unfortunately, even after all this time, the police still do not have any credible leads. The reporter held her microphone up to a tearful woman clutching a framed photograph of a smiling boy. Ma'am, is there anything special you'd like to say to your son in case he is listening? The child's mother stared into the camera and spoke in an emotionally charged voice. Hector, honey, if you can hear me, I want you to know we are still looking for you. Son, I don't care how long it takes. We won't stop looking until we bring you back home. We love you. We miss you. The newscaster told Hector's mother, our thoughts are with you and your family, ma'am, and I really do hope your son makes it home soon. Reporting live from the King William neighborhood, I'm Carolina Santaloco. Their mother clicked off the television. I feel so bad for that family. It must be awful to not know where your child is. She peered over her rhinestone-rimmed glasses and pointed a perfectly manicured, acrylic-tipped finger at the boys. When we go down there today, I want you two to stay close to me and your father. I don't want you running off and getting lost. Do you understand? What if we see something really interesting? Can we go take a look and catch up to you? Asked Zap. Yeah, Mom. You know how curious Zap can be, CJ teased. Their mother was not amused. Did you hear what I just said? I am not playing with you two boys. CJ rolled his eyes. He nodded. Yes, ma'am, we understand, replied Zap. We'll behave. Chapter 2, The Family Outing. Zap, CJ, hurry up. We're going to be late. Oh, Mom, do we have to go? Whined 13-year-old Zap. Can't we stay at home? Please, I'm old enough to watch CJ. No, boys, you can't stay home. Touring the Bancroft home would be both fun and educational. Now get your little brother so we can get out of here. Your mother and I will be outside, your father and I will be outside waiting in the car, and make sure you lock the door. After their mother was no longer within earshot, Zap muttered, Man, I don't want to go see some stupid old house. Boring. Xander Antonio Prescott. Christopher Jonathan Prescott. You guys have 2 minutes to get your little behinds down here, she yelled from the bottom of the stairs. Zap went to his brother's room. Come on, little guy, you heard Mom. You know what it means when she calls us by our full names. This stinks. I hate going on Mom and Dad's weekend drives. CJ flopped down on his bed. Me too, but we don't have a choice. Let's go. They're waiting in the car, so put your little doll in your pocket so we can get out of here. Doll? I don't play with dolls, CJ charged his brother. Zap caught CJ before he could headbutt him. He teased, They look like dolls to me. They're action figures. Say it. Say they're action figures. He swung his arms wildly, hitting Zap anywhere he could connect. Zap kept his 9-year-old brother at bay, all the while laughing uncontrollably. Okay, they're not dolls, they're action figures. That's right, only babies play with dolls, he huffed. All right, you win. Now come on, let's get going before Mom comes back. CJ backed down. Where are we going anyway? He asked, breathless from fighting. He stuffed his favorite G.I. Joe Ninja Commando figure into the front pocket of his cargo shorts. Downtown to look at those big old houses. The ones by the Riverwalk? CJ picked up his space gun, the kind that lights up and makes loud, warbling sounds, and shoved it in his side pocket. Yep. Cool. Maybe we can go skateboarding afterwards. You taking your skateboard with you, Zap? Of course I am. My skateboard goes everywhere I go. But don't count on Mom and Dad letting me ride it, especially after what she said in the kitchen. You taking yours? Nah, I think I'll leave mine at home, CJ shrugged and added. You want to know something? What? Zap responded. He bounded down the stairs, taking 2 at a time with CJ at his heels. He opened the front door, letting the heat of the day inside the air-conditioned entrance, quickly nudging CJ outside because their parents always admonished them for lingering with the door open. I kind of like going into those creepy old houses, all those secret passageways and hidden rooms. Hey, maybe a bunch of zombies will show up and try to eat us. Wouldn't that be cool? Dude, you need to lay off the zombie movies. The only thing that's going to get us down there is a bunch of spiders. Zap ruffled his brother's hair and then made sure the door was locked behind them. Mr. and Mrs. Prescott sat in the car, scanning a well-used street map. When opened, it covered practically the entire dashboard. Unlike most of their friends' parents, Zap and CJ's mom and dad did not rely upon GPS. The directional guidance system was used about as often as a cigarette lighter. Their father was convinced that GPS got them lost more often than not. He also told the boys that if they could read a street map, they could find their way back from anywhere. Dad, can you please pop the trunk? Zap shouted from behind the car. And just where do you think you're taking that thing? Asked his mother, sticking her head through the window. Honey, we can let him take his skateboard. It won't hurt to have it in the trunk, just in case he gets bored. His father sympathized with his sons because he also thought the tours were boring. He popped the trunk's release latch. Zap crept to the driver's window and whispered, Thanks, Dad. You're welcome, son. Both boys hopped in the back seat and buckled their seatbelt. The route the boys' parents decided to take took them southbound on Highway 281. Their father tried to gauge the flow of traffic downtown as he neared the sign indicating the interchange was 2 miles away. Should we take Highway 37 or I-35? Maybe the side streets are quicker. What do you think, dear? It doesn't matter which road we take. They're all congested because of the basketball game. The Spurs are playing today? Dad, can we go see the game instead of going to that stupid house? Asked Zap. Their father cleared their throat. I'll let your mother answer that. I need to focus on this traffic. So you're going to make me the bad guy, huh? Mrs. Prescott said to her husband. Come on, Mom, we want to see the Spurs, Zap pleaded. Yeah, all my friends are going tonight. Why can't we? We don't have school tomorrow, Zap whined. He pulled out his space gun and pretended to shoot random drivers with his invisible laser beam. Boys, we are going to see the Bancroft home. End of conversation. Zap poked CJ in his ribs. Why do you keep shooting everybody? You know how much Mom hates it when you do that. I'm not shooting real people. I'm just practicing killing zombies, so it doesn't count. Mrs. Prescott glanced over her shoulder at CJ. Young man, what have I told you about pretending people are zombies so you can shoot them? She asked. You said don't shoot at people because it's not nice, CJ answered. Oh, so you do remember. She raised her eyebrows while pursing her lips. Zap rolled his eyes and stated to his brother, no more zombie movies for you. Why not? At least I'm using my incredible imagination to keep from being bored. What's wrong with you anyway? I could be out skateboarding. Instead, I'm stuck in this car with you, Zap grumbled. Would you two please stop complaining, said Mrs. Prescott. He started it, CJ mumbled. Their mother turned all the way around to face them. Look, guys, Mrs. Peachtree invited us to visit the Bancroft house this afternoon. Her family recently renovated the house and turned it into a really nice bed and breakfast. They're having an open house today, complete with food and music. And because the Bancroft home is on San Antonio's historic registry, the tour will be filled with interesting history about the local area. We can get tickets to see the Spurs another time. She turned around satisfied that this discussion was over. Zap stuck his index finger into his throat, making gagging motions. CJ watched his older brother and proceeded to imitate him. They both ended up in a fit of giggles. I saw that, said the boy's mother, watching them both in the rearview mirror. Guys, I know this isn't as exciting as going to a basketball game, but I expect both of you to behave yourselves. So do I, added their father. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Dad. We promise to be good, they replied in unison. They rode on in silence for the next several miles, listening to golden oldies on the XM radio station. It was a typical South Texas day, with the temperature hovering in the upper 80s. It could have been December or the middle of June. The time of year didn't matter, because year-round, it was almost always hot in San Antonio. Our exit on Cesar Chavez is coming up. I think St. Mary Street will take us straight to the King William District. Yep, I think you're right, Mr. Prescott signaled as he approached the exit. The boy's father drove through the historic neighborhood. As they cruised past boarded-up storefront properties, CJ continued on with his self-imposed mission to hunt down zombies. He scanned the streets, blasting away all potential walking undead with his space gun. When he spied a group of gentlemen dressed smartly in business suits, he imagined they were actually zombies hiding in plain sight. He closed one eye, pointed his space gun with practiced precision, and whispered loudly, "Pow, pow, pow." Got 3 more. CJ imagined the zombies disintegrating before his eyes. He smiled. His mother shook her head in frustration at her youngest son's antics. Zap glanced at his brother. CJ, you are weird, he exclaimed. So what? You are too. Zap exhaled his expiration. In the driver's seat, their father smiled with delight, both at CJ's relentless love of zombies as well as his own good fortune. He had finally found an empty spot in front of a house undergoing renovations. He easily maneuvered the car between a large pickup truck and a compact hybrid vehicle. The B&B is just a few blocks over. Is this spot okay? Mrs. Prescott glanced around the historic neighborhood and sighed. Well, I suppose it's just as good as anywhere else. I was hoping you could find a spot that was closer. A wedding party, decked out in traditional Mexican garb, was gathered near a gazebo in the park. A photographer circled the group, snapping photo after photo. Sweetheart, you know how horrible the parking situation is down here. We're very lucky we found this spot. But if it's too far to walk, I can circle the streets again. No, this should be fine. You guys okay with walking in this heat? Mr. Prescott guffawed. They're boys, dear. They don't notice the heat. Zap agreed. I'm good, just as long as I can take my skateboard with me. CJ got out of the car. After making certain there were no zombies lurking about, he stuffed his space gun back into his pocket. Zap waited for his father to pop the trunk before reaching in to retrieve his skateboard. Mrs. Prescott pulled 2 bottles of water from her purse and handed them to the boys. Drink this so you won't get dehydrated. It's hotter out here than you think. The boys trailed after their parents. Due to the uneven sidewalks, Zap was unable to ride a skateboard, so he ended up carrying it in his arms. I love this part of San Antonio, Mrs. Prescott sighed happily. It would be nice if we had trees this lovely in our neighborhood. The family strolled past a cottage whose eccentric owner had chosen to paint their home in a vibrant shades of blue and dark orange. The front yard was filled with beautifully colored glass-blown balls in every size. Several of the colorful baubles hung from tree branches, while others teetered on top of 3-foot-high white pedestals. Alongside the corner of the house stood a tall oak tree with a huge yellow ribbon tied around its trunk. Numerous other historical homes in a more pristine condition displayed bronze markers in their yards, touting information about the original property owners and what their contributions were to San Antonio. They came upon a large group of senior citizen sightseers who were taking a walking tour of the neighborhood. Several in a group had gathered in front of a beautifully renovated mansion, trying to locate the write-up in the pamphlets issued by the Historic Registry Society. Pardon us, Mr. Prescott ushered his wife through the small crowd. He glanced over his shoulder, noticing his boys were just a few steps behind. Certainly, replied an elderly man as he stepped out of their way. He tipped his funny-looking hat towards Mrs. Prescott and smiled. As the tourists reassembled on the sidewalk to discuss the historical significance of the home, they inadvertently separated the boys from their parents. Zap tried his best to keep up with his parents, while also keeping an eye on his brother, who lagged behind. As he watched his parents move through the crowd, he stopped to wait for CJ to catch up. Meanwhile, CJ's attention was focused not on keeping up with his brother, but elsewhere. Whoa, look at that cool lizard. Zap, it's the same shade of green as the leaves on that bush. I wonder if it will turn brown if I put it on my arm. He reached out to capture the lizard, but it quickly scurried away. CJ, leave the lizard alone and come on before we get into trouble, Zap shouted. I'm coming, he replied back. Dang it, I almost had him. Come back, you. CJ followed it around the corner. Boys, come on, we're almost there, called out their mother from a few blocks ahead. We're coming, Mom. Zap turned the corner and went after his little brother. You're going to get me in trouble. Come on back before we get lost. I almost had him. CJ lurched after the lizard, only to see it scurry across a tree branch and drop onto a stone wall bordering the sidewalk. The lizard disappeared through a small crack in the wall, ending up in the backyard of an old, deserted, decrepit house hidden from the street. CJ pushed open the metal gate and ran inside in search of the lizard. Zap quickly chased after his brother, not noticing that the gate had closed behind them both. Zap found his brother knelt down on his knees, peering through the window of an old beat-up dollhouse. What are you doing? We're not supposed to be back here, he said, while looking around the backyard, filled with a plethora of strange-looking, green-colored odds and ends. It went through there, CJ pointed to the dollhouse. I can see it. Forget about the ledger, CJ. Mom and Dad are going to kill us. We were supposed to stay close, remember? Come on, let's get out of here. Zap tugged at his brother's t-shirt. Okay, I just wanted to see if it would change to brown, like my skin. That's all, CJ replied. His eyes scanned the massive backyard, noticing for the first time how awful it looked. The yard was overgrown with weeds and looked as if it hadn't been tended in a very long time. I'm not taking the blame this time. When they ask where we were, you better fess up. Zap helped CJ from his knees. The boys headed for the gate that allowed them into the backyard. Zap jiggled the gate, trying to open it. Unfortunately, it had locked behind them. The lone latch on the gate was on the opposite side, making it virtually impossible to get out. What's the matter, Zap? Can't you get it open? CJ gawked at his older brother, waiting for him to fix the problem. He wanted Zap to get them out of the scary backyard that looked as if zombies would spring from the ground at any moment. Listen, Chris, said Zap. The only time he called his brother Chris was when they were in really, really deep trouble. The gate locked behind us. Come over here. I'm going to boost you up so you can reach over the gate to free the latch. Zap propped his skateboard against the wall and stooped down to make it easier for his brother to step on his hands. While he did so, the skateboard toppled over and began to roll away. I can't reach it. It's too high. Hold on. I'm going to push you higher. Try harder. We have to get out of here. I am trying. CJ stretched his small hand towards the top of the fence. Maybe if I hold my breath and pretend my arms are longer, stretch out just a little bit more, I should be able to reach it. He tried with all his might, but wasn't able to reach over the gate. From the corner of his eye, Zap watched his beloved skateboard roll away. Feeling torn between wanting to retrieve his skateboard and escaping the yard, he used all his strength to boost his brother higher. While CJ tried with all his might to reach over the gate, Zap watched the board sail from his view, disappearing into a thicket of weeds. This isn't going to work. He carefully lowered CJ back to the ground. We've got to look for another way. But first, let's go find my skateboard. CJ nervously studied the old house as they walked deeper into the grounds. The remaining glass in the mostly broken out windows were darkened with dust and grime from years of non-use. Weathered paint peeled back from the house in splintered sheets, exposing wood that had been rotted away from moisture, termites, or both. The effect gave the impression that a mere gust of wind would be enough to topple the structure. Various trees blocked the midday sun from the yard, leaving patches of dead grass and weeds to flourish uncontrollably. An ancient, rusted-out shell of a car was hunkered down in one corner of the yard. Tall grass sprouted through the body, making it look as if the car was more organic than man-made. Massive spider webs, spun by equally impressive-sized spiders, covered every conceivable corner of the house. Tangled within the silky threads of the webs were unfortunate insects destined to be the spider's next meal. Though the creepy house frightened them both, what seemed to be most alarming were the oddly shaped pieces of fluorescent green metallic objects that littered the yard. It was as if someone or something had haphazardly thrown out scraps from some strange unknown world. I'm scared, Zap, CJ whispered in his little boy voice. Zap looked at his little brother who stood before him shaking with fright. He knelt down to his level and gripped him by his shoulders. We're going to be okay. I'll get us out of here as soon as I find my skateboard. In spite of Zap's reassurances, CJ was terrified. He stared towards the dark corners of the yard where shadows rose and fell as if they were alive. Zap wiggled the action figure from CJ's pocket and held it up in front of his face. I want you to be brave like Ninja Commando. Pretend you're a Marine escaping from the enemy. Pretend you're a Marine escaping from the enemy, okay? CJ nervously fidgeted with his t-shirt and replied in a quiet tone, Okay, but that house is really spooky looking, just like the one on that zombie movie. If the house scares you, don't look at it. Focus on me instead. They walked towards the back of the huge yard, carefully stepping over those strange, shiny objects. CJ gripped Zap's shirt tail and held on tight. When they reached the back of the yard, they stopped and stared into a large concrete opening concealed by thick weeds. Peering inside, the abyss was so dark it appeared to go on forever. Can you see your skateboard? CJ asked. No, it must be stuck in the weeds. Zap nudged the tangled mess with his foot. Are you going in there? How else am I supposed to get it? Don't go in, Zap. It looks very scary. I have to. My skateboard's in there. Are you sure? Yeah, I saw it roll over in this direction. Can't we just leave it and come back later? No, I have to get it now. Do I have to go in too? You don't have to, but you'll have to wait out here by yourself if you don't. I don't want to wait by myself. This yard is scary. I thought I saw something moving over there. Well, then you're going to have to come with me. Any zombies in there? CJ, there's no such thing as zombies. I think there's such a thing as zombies. Vampires, too. Something deep within the thicket stirred. All of a sudden, a strong gust of wind blew past them, spitting out tiny pieces of strange, fluorescent green and blue objects into the yard. The air carrying the stuff was surprisingly cool. What was that? Zap steadied his brother from falling. I don't know, and I don't want to find out. CJ backed away slowly from the darkness. All right, scaredy cat, but I want you to stay right here and wait for me. Zap took a deep breath to gather his courage. He placed one foot on the thicket of dead weeds, testing the ground to make sure it wouldn't give. The cool air continued to blow forth, though not with as much force, nor with the green bits of stuff. CJ, bring me that tree branch. Unwilling to move too far from Zap, he selected the branch closest to his foot. This one? No, the longer branch, the one over there propped against the stump. CJ stepped away, keeping his eyes on his brother. This one? He asked, moving the funny-looking objects away with his foot. Yeah, bring it over here. Zap took the branch and poked around the dark hole, searching for the skateboard. Do you think Mom and Dad are looking for us yet? Probably, but I'm not leaving here without my skateboard. I know it's in here somewhere. Stay there. I'll be right back. Zap stepped into the darkness that seemed to immediately swallow him. CJ watched in horror as his brother disappeared into the abyss. He was there one moment and gone the next. Now, all alone in the spooky yard, CJ imagined he saw something move inside the rusted-out car. He screamed, "A zombie!" And without giving it a second thought, he jumped in the hole after Zap. He tumbled several feet down, landing spread-eagled on his stomach. "Zap! Zap! Where are you?" he shouted, brushing damp, muddy leaves from his face. "I'm over here," Zap whispered. "Where? I can't see anything. Why is it so dark in here?" "Listen to my voice and we'll find each other. Sounds like you're pretty close." The boys groped around in the darkness until their hands connected. "Is that you, Zap?" "Yeah, it's me. Hold my hand and promise you won't scream when I tell you this." "I promise." Zap whispered quietly. "I have a bad feeling that we're not alone." And that is the end of Chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed this preteen book. It's very exciting. It's filled with aliens, space monsters, space creatures, and all kinds of exciting adventures. It's available at Amazon and at Barnes and Nobles. Thank you and have a blessed day. Peace.